Today's world, it's pretty sad. I would say so, at least. But there is a way for us to make it better, to make the world a less sad place. And I'm here to tell you. Hi, my name is Jayden Kayne Rizky, and I'm going to tell you about how we can make the world a better place with empathy. So, what is empathy? You see, empathy, at least by definition, is when you put yourself in someone else's position to understand their thoughts, feelings, and emotions. In other words, you put yourself in another person's shoes to understand what they're feeling. Now, that's just the definition. How about an example? Here, I have a dog, and every time when my mom is sick or feeling unwell, my dog usually stays by her. Why? Well, you see, usually my mom's behavior is that she's busy, she's doing work, maybe she's having a phone call. But right now, when she's sick, she's not really doing much. Just in her bed, just maybe taking a nap. And with that slight difference and that strange behavior, my dog knows that something's off. But that's just a dog. That's an animal. We're humans, right? We're supposed to be better. We're supposed to have more empathy. But the thing is, we don't really have a lot of empathy, at least a lot less than what you would think. What do I mean by this? You see, let's say your loved one is sick or just feeling unwell. Usually what you would do is that you would maybe get them something, get them medicine, or just try to make them feel better. But usually, what we would do is that we would just go on maybe social media or just play some video games. So, why is it like this? Why do we do these things? It's because of a loss in empathy. So why is there a lack or loss in empathy? You see, there's many different variables, many different reasons, but I'm just going to tell you a few. One of them is being in a bad environment. So what do I mean by being in a bad environment? You see, let's say someone is living or maybe used to live in a bad environment, which is they didn't really have a lot of social interactions. Maybe they didn't have loving parents or a lot of friends. And with that, since they don't have any social interactions, they will have less empathy. Because social interactions is one of the best ways for us to develop our empathy. But that's just more in general. What about something more specific? You see, I am in Gen Z, or Generation Z, and we had to go through something called COVID-19. I'm sure everyone here remembers COVID-19, right? We had to stay at home for 2 years and go on Zoom calls. Now you might say, oh, well, we did go and we did socialize by maybe Zoom or video calls, but it's not the same. You see, let's say that you are having a face-to-face interactions, you and another person. Usually, in a face-to-face interactions, there's a lot less distractions than in a call. Because in a call, you're using a device, and you can just switch tabs to whatever you would like. Another thing that is the difference between a face-to-face interaction and socialization via calls is that you're talking to a screen. You're talking to a person, but it's through a screen. So you can definitely tell there is a difference. Okay, so I'm going to ask everyone here a quick question. Does anyone know the difference between empathy and sympathy? Okay, you see, I get this question asked a lot about empathy and sympathy. And by definition, empathy is, well, you put yourself in another person's shoes to understand their feelings. But sympathy, by definition, is also quite similar. What I mean by this? You see, sympathy is when you put yourself in a person's position and you can feel what they're feeling. You can feel their emotions. Now, you might say that That's basically the same thing, right? But in practice, it's different. Here's an example. Let's say that your friend maybe lost their grandmother. I know, it's very tragic. Usually someone with empathy would go up to them and maybe try and comfort them, try and help them through this stressful time of their lives. But someone with sympathy, on the other hand, would just maybe go to the funeral, say their condolences, and just leave. And you can tell there is a big difference between those two. You can tell which one is more powerful. Okay, so now we know a bit more about empathy. So how about we learn how to practice empathy? So to practice empathy, I would say the best way to practice it is to remember these three simple letters, O, T, and A. What do I mean by the OTA? Well, O stands for observe, T stands for think, and finally A stands for ask. All right, so I'm going to explain to you what these three words mean. So let's say O, observe. You observe someone's emotions, maybe their face or their body language, to say maybe they look sad, happy, or angry. You never know. So let's say they're sad. After that, you need to think, as in T. Think about why are they sad, and think about how would you be in their position, because you never know what they're going through. And finally, A, or ask. You should go up to them and ask them, hey, is everything okay? Do you need any help? I'm here for you. And after that, be a good listener and be creative. Okay, now we know a lot more about empathy. How about we see the difference between a world with and without empathy? So first of all, what I would think a world without empathy would look like is that there would be a lot more self-harm. Why do I say this? Because, you see, usually when someone's going to hurt themselves or even worse, kill themselves, somebody with empathy would try to stop them from doing such a horrible thing and talk them out of it. But without empathy, there will be no that one person to help stop the other person to going to hurt themselves. Another thing that would happen in a world without empathy is that it will be most likely more sad. Now you might say that the world is already sad, and it is. But without empathy, it'll be even more sad. Because let's say you lost a loved one, usually someone with empathy would help you out, right? Would care for you. But without empathy, there'll be no one to help you. So you have to just deal with it on your own, which is very sad. Another thing is that no one is going to care about you. Now, already in this world, there's going to be always at least one person that's going to care for you. But without empathy, there'll be even less people, maybe just one or two. And because of that, you're going to have to go through tough times by yourself, and you're going to just look like another person, and no one wants that, right? Okay, so I'm actually going to be completely honest with everyone here, okay? I don't really have a lot of empathy. I know, it's hypocritical, isn't it? I'm here talking about empathy and how to practice it, even though I don't have any of my own. But I'm not the only one here. Gen Z, my generation, we don't really have a lot of empathy, or at least less empathy. And that is not really it. So I'm actually going to ask everyone here to do something, even people watching at home on YouTube. I want everyone to do something. I want you all to rate yourself from 1 to 10, 1 being the worst and 10 being the best, on how empathetic you are. I'll give you a while, just get the number. Okay, so now you rate yourself. I would rate myself, I would say a 4 out of 10. I know, it's not a very good score, is it? It's not even halfway. But the thing is, that score could develop. It could get better. Maybe in the next few months, it could become a 5 out of 10, or in the next few years. You never know. And you might say, how do we develop? Well, then I just tell you how to practice empathy, the OTA. You can use that to develop your empathy. And you might say that, why? Why must we develop our empathy? you see, I told you about a world with and without empathy. So you should definitely know on what I'm trying to say here. But you also might say that the next generation, Gen A, is just gonna have more empathy. But they're not gonna. Why? Because they take after us, the generation before them, just like how we took after the generation before us. So without us having any empathy, Gen A would also follow the same and have no empathy at all. And as I told you, a world without empathy isn't a fun place to live in, is it? Okay, so I'm going to tell you about my experience with empathy. So back in 2021, when COVID was still pretty viral, it was still pretty dangerous, my parents got COVID-19. And I was, of course, really worried for them because, again, COVID was still quite dangerous back then. But I couldn't really do anything since I just had to stay in my room and just pray that I don't get corona. But what happened was that one of my parents' friends, which is also my best friend's mom, actually told them, how about I go with her and her son and stay with them until my parents get better, and so they can also go to the hospital and get proper treatment. And so we did do that. Yes, I did go to her house and stay there for about 2 weeks until my parents got better. But the thing is, she showed empathy in another way. You see, she had to come pick me up from my house, of course, and that came with a risk. That came with a risk of maybe I was already infected with COVID, or that maybe I carried the virus with me. So she definitely took a risk just so my parents and also me could get better and also could just continue. So that really did show me, the first time in my life, about empathy and how people could help you no matter what. So, sorry, it's okay. So the world is depressing and it's unwell. It needs medicine. The world needs medicine. And what is the medicine? It's empathy, because empathy is the medicine that this world needs. So how about we try to develop our empathy and be that medicine so we can make the world a better place. Thank you for listening and showing your empathy.